Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Novato Community Wildfire Preparedness Workshop. My name is Rich Shortall. I'm the Executive Coordinator of Fire Safe Marin. For those of you who are still filling out the poll, thanks very much for doing that. We appreciate the information, and we'll get back to you later on in this evening with the results of that. These workshops are meant to help you build the knowledge, skills, and competence that we all need to make our family safer from wildfire. The workshops are an opportunity to ask questions of your local fire department, agency representatives, and get updates from the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority funded wildfire prevention projects in your area. These workshops are in fact funded by the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, which was created by Measure C, passed by the voters of Marin. That organization also sponsors the Curbside Chipper Program, which has just gotten underway. If you haven't thought about it, we really encourage you to clear some defensible space on your property and take advantage of the chipper program by going to chipperday.org/Marin and signing up. We'll be talking more about that program later on tonight. Let me now introduce my co-hosts. First, we have Yvette Blount, Supervisor of the Novato Wildfire Mitigation Specialist, and Nicholas Barlupe, who is a Wildfire Mitigation Specialist working in the field. Yvette, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Well, thank you. I would be happy to. And thank you for having us here tonight, Rich. This is a great opportunity for all of Marin County and for Novato residents. My name is Yvette Blount, and I have been a resident of Novato my whole life. I come from a firefighter family, and about 25 years ago, I started here with Novato as a reserve, and I worked in public education. I then moved on to 19 years of being an engineer paramedic with the Southern Marin Fire, and retired a few years ago. And Novato gave me this fantastic opportunity of coming back here and developing our wildfire mitigation specialist team and working with the MWPA and Fire Safe Marin. I have 2 children. I'm married. I love Novato. I am so invested in this community, and now that I get to be a part of this program, I'm thrilled. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a great ride, and I think that this community is really pulling together. So thank you for having us. And
great, thanks. Yvette, it's great to have a real Novato native. That's wonderful.
That's right. Say Marin.
All right, there you go. All right. And Nicholas, how about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having us tonight. My name is Nicholas Barlupe. I've had the pleasure of being with Novato Fire District since October of 2019. Prior to that, I did seasonal D-space inspections for Moraga-Orinda Fire District. And prior to moving out this way, I worked for Placer County CAL FIRE for 5 years as a firefighter EMT. I have a fire science degree from Sierra College, where I also graduated from Fire Academy. And we have a great team here at Novato Fire District, and we're hoping to make some really good change here.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us tonight. And we're actually very lucky because behind the scenes, we have Chief of Department Bill Tyler and John Dicochea, who's a battalion chief and in charge of fire prevention for the department. And they will also be available to answer questions that you pose to us as we go through the evening. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. So the workshop itself is divided into several segments that are introduced by short videos. After each video, we ask for some comments from Nicholas and Yvette, and they'll also take some questions from the audience. We really do strongly encourage you to participate, though. And the best way to do that at the bottom of your screen is the Q&A function. Type in your question. Some questions we'll just answer in writing right away, and some we'll bring into Yvette and Nicholas. And if you have something very specific for the chief, let him know. He's here to answer those questions. The answers will be posted on our Fire Safe Marin website when all of this is finished. And the only thing we ask is that you please keep the questions related to the content of the material that we're delivering tonight. Tonight's presentation will be recorded, and it will be available on our YouTube channel. Give us a couple days to get it up there. But for those of you who have friends who couldn't make it tonight, this is their opportunity to check everything out. So our first video tonight features the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Executive Officer, Mark Brown, describing events that took place at the recent glass fire last year up in Sonoma. Mark's home is in the area, and he was on the scene during the fire. There's quite a bit that we can learn from this post-fire analysis. So Jen, would you mind bringing up the video, please?
being a resident of the Skyhawk subdivision and being recently retired from the Marin County Fire Department and the new executive officer for the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, I thought this was just too good of an example for us to miss. September 27th, that's the right date, right? The glass fire started in the early morning, 3:30, 4 a.m., something like that. And I'm looking at where it is on the map. I'm going, all right, shouldn't have a tremendous impact for me. Should run in, if it crosses the valley, it should run into the Nuns Fire and some of the other fires for 2017. But I think it's far enough south, it's not going to impact me. So if you saw in a presentation, you might have thought, well, that was a funny first picture you put in there, where kind of a dark picture with a little lantern. That's a timestamp. And to give some context to how fast these situations can come about. That's about when I'm hearing sirens. Pull out my phone and I look at the location and I'm like going, that's the absolute worst spot for this subdivision for a fire to start. When I first pull it into the command post, it's 9:15. Finally get situated where I can stand side by side with the incident commander. And as I'm standing next to him, he goes, all right, you're at about 300 to 500 acres, and it's going to be in Santa Rosa in 2 hours. The fire was actually progressing down that slope slowly, and I was actually really happy with the way it was progressing. You go to the next slide, which is the timestamp of 0048. You'll see trees flapping in the wind. It's those trees right there that are flapping in the wind. And again, listen to the wind and look at the change of wind direction. And that's the fire becoming well established in this drainage and making a hard run down this drainage. And this is a high school friend of mine's house. And that's why we have permission to go onto his property. Every time I walk by his house, I'm going, well, Sean, you got privacy, but I'm not sure that's the best thing for you. So when I got down here, the bottom of this brambly rose bush had just gotten going. I squirted it for a little while, got it out, and then you can see not just that corner, but that upper corner of that bush started burning. You see this carcass of a rose bush. You look at the trees, to Todd's point, right, Todd? The trees were damaged by everything else that was burning. The trees really didn't transmit the fire. It was the ember cast that was, in my opinion, coming off of this, getting blown against. And you see that there used to be a gazebo, and then what is Chris? There were some type of vines on the gazebo.
Looks like it could be dry and not a lot of leaves. I'm not sure what it is.
I can't remember for sure, but one thing that bothers me, and it could be after the fact, but the lowest burn is over here.
Propane. Probably fueled by the vines that came into the apple tree and eventually got the propane tank going, but the propane was probably low torture this way.
And it may or may not have been after the house got well involved. But it was, to me, whether it was that piece there, and you see the little architectural feature that creates a chimney type effect, but it was the flammable material that was up against the home. And then the wind pushing the embers from this up against the house and then forcing it up into the attic vents. And so the whole idea of blocked eaves, Vulcan vents, no blocked eaves, no Vulcan vents on this home. And it burned from the attic down. I guarantee you, I watched it. You know, for many of the homes that were destroyed, I really believe that if people had done their home hardening and zone 0 defensible space work, those homes would have survived. If they didn't have flammable material within the 3 to 5 feet of space of their home, if they would have blocked their eaves or they had improved vents so that the fire could not get in their attic, I firmly believe they would have survived this fire. So the newer homes were built to 7A standards. And yes, there was suppression action taken on that deck fire up there. But look at the beating that the side of that house took, and it didn't get into the attic. I have to think that there was Building Code 7A standards helped save that home besides suppression action. But virtually, from what I see, every one of them burned from the attic down. And then Paul, if you want to talk about what you and I were talking about, please.
Different wood chips really reacted much different than we would have expected. There's a wood chip that has a red dye. That wood chip is what you find at that house that's got the heavy damage to it. It literally consumed every single wood chip between fence line to fence line to fence line. And then immediately next to it, taking the heat that it did, we had that cedar chip, and it didn't do anything. We had multiple yards where the cedar did fantastic. And then just downhill from the red dye chip was the gorilla hair, and we talked to some of those crews, and it took them hours to try and pull apart, you know, six inches to a foot of mulch to fully extinguish it.
This is where I have one of the first pictures from May of 2019, that when I was on one of my walks, and so that first picture is of these two houses, right? Not too much has changed since that picture, minus the fire. And what looked like was the primary carrier fire up that slope?
Fence.
The fence. The fence, right? And it's somewhat hard to tell exactly what caused the fence to get going. It looks to me that the gorilla hair allowed the fence to get going. If there had been nothing flammable up against that fence, it's unlikely that embers hitting that fence would have got the fence going. It needed something to maintain the heat underneath the fence, and then once the fence got going, it maintained its own combustion and walked up the hillside, and looks like someone went in and kicked a few panels out. It's looking this way. You can see the handrails of a walking path. So you have that beige house, there's a gap in homes that's purposeful, it's an open space, walking path that comes down, and then the remnants of a house is just on the other side of the gap. So if you look at those pictures, you'll see the second house had remarkable defensible space work in their property and in the area of the easement below them. And then when you look at the fourth house what do you notice in that picture? The house with the remnants of trees below it.
Continuous canopy.
A continuous canopy, and when we get up top and look at it from up there, you'll be shocked how close some of those trees were to the house. It created two different types of ladders as well. Not a ladder up the slope, but also a ladder from the ground into the trees. I think the house with the trees was probably the first house that started.
When were your pictures taken?
What was likely underneath those trees that singed those trees and allowed the fire to slowly creep up that property?
I think mulch, I think a great example is the second tree up, like the deciduous tree up there. It has that nice little ring around it. At least looks like it from here.
Put some mulch around there to help with the erosion, help hold water, so that the trees could have moisture to grow. You'll see the batch of several homes that were destroyed. And then these two homes that weren't destroyed. And then we have a home where you see the roof timber still sticking up, and then a home completely on the ground. And it struck me, why is there that gap? And I think when we get up to, you might be able to see why that gap, or why did the new home get involved up there instead of house to house against the wind? What's that, Chris?
That one was surrounded by Italian cypress.
Wait till you see it up top. Of the skeletons of Italian cypress immediately upwind from the structure. And like I will bet a paycheck that that's what burned that house down. The before picture, blackberry and bramble that was virtually impenetrable. And then let's look at this house. I mean, as D-space evaluators, and you're looking at this house, what are you saying to yourself?
I would say that those are deciduous trees that didn't ever get involved in the fire, and they browned out because of what was on the ground underneath them. Yeah. So clearance shouldn't mean removing those trees. They probably provided some protection to the house. Limbing them up and cutting this grass that was underneath them right here is what would have made a difference.
I think you're right. Yeah. But trees not being the total enemy is an important message. When we go to this last house up here, you'll see that the trees were damaged because the house burned down. It wasn't the trees that burned down the house. That house we've talked about, the other way around, but the vast majority of the trees, it wasn't the trees were damaged because of the house. if we just do a good job of having separation and not creating that ladder fuel, then we'll be successful. And you see that house right there, that deck caught on fire. And it's probably because the bramble that was in here, that bramble that was holding fire, finally started to carry up the slope. They probably had some stuff that allowed that deck to get going underneath. It took some significant suppression actions to save that home, and they were just lucky that there were fire engines already in this area. Take a look at the fence in between. So whether it was the deck that got the fence going and the fence walked this way, probably what happened, right? But it could have easily been the deck that got the fence gets going over here and then gets into the eaves in another spot. I think that's one of the most important messages we have to drive home. How we're going to keep our communities safer is if we focus from the house and work out from there. And if we make our home in such a way that embers can land on or around the home and our home does not become ignited, then not only is your home saved, but homes downwind from your home are saved.
All right, Yvette and Nicholas, we're back on again. Hope everybody enjoyed that. I think one of the first things that should strike everybody about that is that doesn't look like the typical post-fire scene. We go up into places like Paradise and whatnot, everything's wiped out. It's a little bit hard for us to get lessons learned from that, even though the fire service does. But here we can see a lot of houses survived and some of them didn't. And what we're going to be talking a lot about tonight is the reason of what you can do really to make sure your house is one of the ones that actually survives. It's a doable, achievable thing. So Yvette, Nicholas, either of you have any comments on that film?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. So Mark pointed out in the video the columnar cypress, the fire hazardous vegetation that was closest to the home on top of the hill. And like he said he would bet his paycheck that it wasn't the home that necessarily burnt down the cypress. It was probably the cypress that maybe ignited the home. The alteration to the homes, things like vents can help improve your home hardening aspect. And the different barks and mulches that are on those slopes, on those hillsides, is relatively significant. He described the variance of size and how long it takes fire crews to put out those intensity of fires in those bark mulches. Another thing to consider is the significant weather events, the topography, and the different kinds of fuel types that are in that area. And within all that, there is this human element that is people and their homes and their lives. And it's this unfortunate formula that led to those homes being lost.
Thank you. Yvette?
Yeah, the one thing is that neighborhood was built after the fire code changed in 2008. And so most of those homes had the proper siding and windows that we call WUI compliant, double pane tempered, hardy backer siding, proper roofing, vent caps. But then they added arbors with vines over the top. They put in different mulches up close to the home, vegetation in the zone 0, which we call zone 0, the non-combustible zone. And most of these houses burnt from the roof down. And many of these trees were still standing. So that is what we've placed in after the code and made those choices because we want a beautiful, yard and vegetation. And you can have that. We are just learning through science that we need to make better choices of where we place them and how we place them and if they're healthy and have good housekeeping basically on our property. So we don't want people to think it's a moonscape. You have to have a moonscape and it's just going to be this big area with nothing there. You can have all those things, but we just need to be smarter about where we place them and how we then add accents to these hardened homes with the proper materials.
Yeah, very well said. One of the things you brought up, and Mark said it several times, for myself at Fire Safe Marin, probably the most common question I get, or kind of a quasi complaint, is my neighbor has this tree, or the open space district has this tree, and that tree is going to burn my house down.
Correct. And we get that every day. That's questions that our crew actually is going to have for their whole career. It's very hard to sometimes have the people turn around and look at their home and say, we really need to look at the first 5 feet. And they're so concerned with the tree that's 100 yards away or over the fence line. But we have picture after picture where the house is burnt down and the trees are just perfect and they're 20 feet from the home. So we have to give them the science base and the education that we've learned. You know, Mark Brown had an opportunity to make an incredible video with a neighborhood that lost some, had some saved, and they all had before and after pictures because he lives there. And it is an incredible example that we share here with every one of our WIMs. This is part of our training program here. My whole crew was actually there for that afternoon. That's why we had Nicholas talk about it. And he's taught our new WIMs, that we call them WIMs, Wildfire Mitigation Specialists, that come on crew here. That is, they get the full version, the couple-hour version of that day, because it's such valuable information, and getting residents to understand the educational component of, I can improve my home by hardening it, increasing my combustible materials in zone 0, that first 5 feet, and housekeeping. And that tree that's so far away is not as scary once you understand the science.
Absolutely. Well, you know, around the same time that we had the glass fire burning, we had a big fire, first big fire in a long time in Marin, the so-called Woodwood fire in West Marin. We were really lucky. We kind of dodged a bullet here again. But what were some of the impacts from that fire up in Novato, which is somewhat far away from there?
Right. So we did have big impact with that. Our 911 calls went up. Our wildfire mitigation specialist team got many more calls for assessments. And it's one of those things that's kind of fear motivated defensible space, right? Oh my goodness, I smell the smoke, the crews are there, the fire's over the hill. Now what do I do? And what we're trying to get our community to realize, that we need to become a fire adaptive community, that these are things that need to be done way in advance, not the time when there is a fire. When there's a fire, you need to be paying attention to your Nixle and your Marin alert. You need to be making sure that you're prepared for evacuation, that your children, your animals, your pets, your home, your things like your medicines, things like that are all ready to go. And you're not thinking about, I have full gutters. We should have clean gutters with gutter guards. We should have the proper vents. We shouldn't be moving our stack of wood away from the house because there's a fire over the hill. That should be things that are already done. And that's the preventative care, and becoming that fire adaptive community and living in this space and being ready for it if it does happen.
Yes. I love the word fire adaptive community. We're about to learn about that in the next video. So let's go forward to that. The next video is about wildfire science, because it's kind of hard to understand, well, how come the tree doesn't burn? How come I need to do this and that without really understanding the mechanism of wildfire? So Jen, would you mind bringing that up, please?
Good evening. My name is Mark Brown. As Rich mentioned, I have the honor to serve as the Deputy Fire Chief for the Marin County Fire Department. And you know, as I was thinking about how to best describe to everybody what or how we got to today's fire environment, it dawned on me that we really have 3 failures that are disguised as successes. The first one is our total fire suppression policies that we adopted way back in 1910. And California ecology needs fire to be healthy, and we've interrupted that cycle. And so we've created unhealthy forests. We've tried to let those fires burn at times if they were lightning caused fires and they were in a location where it was safe for them to burn. But if there's a structure threat or a life threat, then we have to go and suppress that fire, which furthers the problem. The next success that is really a failure is the success of pushing people further and further into the wildland, living in the wildland urban interface. And quite honestly, where there are people, there are ignitions. When there's ignitions, we're gonna have fire. And where there are people, we have to suppress that fire. So therefore, we're continuing the damage to our forests. And then we get to the most important failure, or a series of some successes, and that is creating our industry, creating our transportation, and our power generation. All of these successes of humankind have they've been a failure to the environment, and through the increase of carbon emissions and what they have done to add to our climate change. And just to give it really succinctly, in California, our fire season has increased by about 75 days a year.
So that's more than 2 months a year that we have increased fire season. And therefore, we obviously have more opportunity for fire, but almost as important as that is that the fuels, the vegetation out there just doesn't have the time to recover, doesn't have time to bring in that moisture, and it doesn't have that time to be healthy. So we've created this really vicious cycle. And, you know, as a fire service, we were almost staying ahead of the explosive nature of this new fire environment. Starting in 2013 and a few fires before that, we started to really tip that scale over to where we're not keeping up anymore.
Wildfires are a natural event. A long time ago in California, wildfires were often started by lightning, igniting dry leaves and underbrush in the forests. There were lots of wildfires, but they weren't very destructive because there wasn't as much fuel to burn on the forest floor. Regular fires do the hard cleanup work for us. Native Americans understood that forests were healthier if they experienced lots of small fires, which burned dead wood and debris on the forest floor. They would even set fires to encourage this healthy cycle. This helped large trees stay healthy, made it easier for the native people to hunt and grow food. For the last 100 years or so, we've been putting out wildfires because we were worried that fires were dangerous to people. At first, fighting fires was easy because the forests were clean from years of natural fires. But over time, our forests have suffered. When small fires are not allowed to burn, dead wood and other flammable debris builds up. Now when fires start, they become much bigger and spread fast because the fire has a lot of dry material to burn. Here are two diagrams to describe fires. The first is called the fire triangle. It shows that we need heat, fuel, and oxygen for any fire to burn. The second is called the wildfire triangle. A wildfire needs three special things: fuel that can burn, weather, which is dry and windy, and topography. Topography means the shape of the land. Remember that heat rises, so fires usually go uphill much faster than they go downhill. When it's windy, the wind is stronger at the top of mountains and in the valleys between mountains. So the wind often spreads fires up hills and through valleys. The wind not only forces heat and flames in front of it, but it also sends embers long distances. Embers are small burning materials like leaves and small pieces of wood that can be blown in the wind and smoke. When these embers fall back to the ground, they can start many small fires, called spot fires. When an ember lands near your home, it can start a fire in grass that hasn't been cut, in bushes that have lots of dry, dead leaves and twigs, or on wooden furniture and cushions that have been left outside, or in leaves that are on your roof, in your rain gutters, or on the ground around your house. The embers can also enter homes through open doors and windows, or through the vents that are needed around your home for foundations and attics. Embers are the main causes of houses burning during a wildfire. As climate change warms our planet, wildfire conditions are getting worse. Over time, the average yearly temperature is higher and climbing. Changing climate also affects weather patterns. We're experiencing longer periods without rain, and many trees are dying due to drought. Our fire season is now 2 months longer than when your parents were kids. Many parts of our landscaping are drying out, and this makes the trees and bushes more likely to burn. When we have more strong wind days, all we need is a spark and a wildfire can start, which is hard to put out. Understanding wildfires helps us to live with a natural part of our ecology. We need them to keep our forests in balance, but we also need to understand fire's behavior to know how to protect ourselves and our homes.
The title of this presentation is Community Fire Destruction During Extreme Wildfires, a Home Ignition Problem. Well, so perhaps you say a home ignition problem? Well, duh, we wouldn't be having this if homes didn't ignite. But what if we could prevent homes from igniting and our communities from burning to destruction? So for right now, with our mind's eye, let's visualize our perception of how extreme wildfires ignite homes in communities. So wildfires are inevitable, and thus extreme wildfires are inevitable. And so does this mean that wildland urban fire disasters are inevitable? And my answer to that is no. But you might be surprised based on your perception of how homes ignite during extreme wildfires. So what is the general perception of how homes ignite? Well, here are 3 interview perceptions of home destruction during wildfires. The firestorm descended like a dragon from hell on the foothill neighborhoods and laid them to waste. The wildfire swept through the community with a tsunami of flame. The wildfire literally exploded houses in flames, leaving in its path. It was like a war zone. But when we look at the evidence of the disasters, when we go and examine the evidence of the disasters, the typical pattern of destruction is total home destruction with unconsumed vegetation. So what this scene indicates is that no walls of flame sweeping through communities occur, and wildfires don't literally or figuratively explode houses in flames. So wildfire spreads as a sequence of ignitions, not as a sweeping mass of flame, even in this kind of behavior that we call crown fires in shrubs and trees. So when we see a scene like this, the high-intensity crown fire burning from right to left stops at the first residential street of this neighborhood, just from 40 feet of gap between the canopies at this street. So even without the crown fire, total home destruction occurs on the left side, initiated by burning embers from that extreme fire behavior. So what do unconsumed vegetation in homes adjacent to total destruction indicate? While not spread through the community like a lava flow, flash flood, or tsunami that explodes houses in flame, leaving total destruction in its wake. And very importantly, this kind of total destruction surrounded by green does not indicate high intensity wildfire exposure. So where we have a choice, if we define wildland urban fire as a home ignition problem, we can focus on making our homes ignition resistant during extreme wildfires and prevent ignitions. So preventing ignition and burning within this 5-foot zone next to building materials is a very critical element. But note in this photo, in this scene, that it was the pine needles that burned, not the shrubbery that was over the pine needles, because it's there unconsumed, scorched but unconsumed. And we see a similar scene of where this house ignited and was successfully protected with the same kind of non-combusted, non-consumed shrubs with the pine needles carrying the fire and igniting from lofted burning embers. So we need to create a non-ignition zone within 5 feet of a home and its flammable attachments to prevent this kind of damage and potential total destruction.
It's important to understand that in fire adaptive communities, the public understands certain components. They understand that there's a role that fire will play on the surrounding landscape. They understand that fire authorities cannot save all homes. They may not be able to. And lastly, that the community mitigation actions will reduce the unwanted impacts of wildfire. In a fire adaptive community, the public also is going to take action. They're going to support and enhance local fire protection capacity, what the firefighters can do, and then what they can do through Ready, Set, Go. They can prepare structures for wildfire via either being firewise or living with fire or similar principles. They need to take action to build fire-resistant materials and use low-risk landscapes. They also need to increase and maintain risk reduction efforts over time. This is the holistic approach that the community needs to take under a fire adaptive community model. The community takes a variety of integrative actions specific to their community. So as you can see, there are many different steps that a community can take, and not every community is going to take the same step.
Okay, we're back on again. For those of you who don't know who Jack Cohen is, he's considered the godfather of modern wildfire science. He's out of the University of Montana. He's a fascinating guy. We've really have enjoyed working with him on several of our webinars. But his statement is considered a little bit controversial sometimes for people who've never heard it before. And that's whole idea that basically we have a home ignition problem rather than a wildfire problem. Yvette, what are your thoughts on that?
I think Jack really hits the nail on the head with this one. And I think what people need to understand is he says unconsumed vegetation. So if you lose an entire neighborhood of all these homes and there's all these green standing trees, it's not complete devastation. Things survived in there. I always kind of talk to my mitigation specialists and they go out and talk to people and we're trying to give them an analogy. It's like when you go camping and you start a fire, but you bring no kindling, no paper, and you have these 4 big logs and you just can't start the fire. And then you're frustrated because you can't make s'mores, right? So we want to understand that you need light fuel. You need flammable combustion close to the house to light it on fire. And then you have radiant heat, but it's not the vegetation that is coming in and as he says, as a tsunami taking out neighborhoods. It doesn't work like that. And the points of the science are our season is longer. It is hotter. It is drier. This is going to be a very bad drought season for us this year. And this is going to be the trend for us. We're not going to recoup it in a season. And so it's important for us to understand how things burn. And that goes into understanding the fire science. And so we need to harden that first 5 feet. And then we need to have healthy green choices in our vegetation with proper separation horizontally and vertically. It was perfect that they had shrubs right up against the house and they put pine needles on them and the shrubs were okay, but they were melting the siding on the home. So not the best choice. We would not have that there in the zone 0. We would have the beautiful plants out in a box out in front. If you notice, the grass was very green. Everybody on all those pictures, the grass was green. So the embers went into the home and the ember storm started the homes by catching those lighter fuels, cracks, crevices, larger vents, all those things that we typically have had from our older construction that we are now learning that we need to upgrade.
Well, if there's one message we're going to get tonight, it's all about embers. And I think some of those pictures are really good. You can see that when Todd was illustrating. So Nicholas, you're out there in the field evaluating homes. What are you seeing that people should be thinking about relative to what we're talking about right now? You're on mute there.
Mute.
Firstly, they've made a great choice by having an assessment. It's really easy to access us to schedule an assessment. Some of the most common things I see is really right within that immediate zone. It's the leaves in the gutters. It's the fiber doormats. It's the shoes that are piled in a corner at the entryways. It could be vulnerabilities like void spaces or gapping in your roof lines and eaves. cleaning your gutters is really the number one thing that if someone has an assessment with me and they feel like they can do something right away, it's something like that. They can do it, they feel good about it, they can do it regularly, and it's really helping minimize a significant vulnerability, and it's really cost effective, and it just takes some time, and it helps get that idea thinking that what else can I do to help minimize those easily ignitable fuels, like starting that campfire? It's those leaves in the gutters and things like that. So even just starting with something like that, that's relatively entry level, really helps people get the process going.
Well, that's great. I think Chief Tyler did a great job talking about fire adapted communities. Somebody made the comment to me the other day, if you move to Lake Tahoe, you need to be able to adapt to living with snow in the wintertime. If you're going to live here in Marin County, you need to be able to adapt to fire. Because as Mark Brown said earlier on, wildfires have been with us for a long time. They're going to continue to be. We do the best we can on them, but it's something we need to adapt to. And this home out approach. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Yvette? Home out, fire adapt?
Absolutely. So a fire adaptive community, just like Chief Tyler said, the public needs to understand that they have to take a role in their surrounding landscaping and in their home, and that the fire crews are not, we don't have a fire engine for in front of every house. And so you have to be able to adapt your home and your environment to live in this new space. There's some things we can't change. We can't change our climate. We can't change the temperature. Fires happen. It's healthy for fires to happen. And now we need to adapt to that so we can survive in this environment that we love so much. And those things we can change. It just takes education and the will. And then he had a great point, you know, we need the public to take action, and we need to do it before we have the firestorm. These are things that might take time. Our assessors go out and they give short-term goals, long-term goals. For instance, Nicholas talked about cleaning the gutters is an easy one. And one thing that we find interesting is that people think of cleaning gutters only in winter. And I'm going to have rain and I need my gutters to flow. And so we really have to stress, you don't understand, you have to really clean your gutters multiple times a year, especially when we're coming into the red flag season. And that is crucial. And so we will talk later about the grants that we offer here in Novato, and some of our community is a little bit up in years and we don't want them up on the roof, but you can hire people to clean out your gutters. And we have grants that will help you with those jobs. So you may not be able to do them yourself, but we'll give you some financial help so you can get that job done. And it's really important that we get that done. But as far as being fire adaptive communities here in Novato, we have already 16 plus FireWise communities and still growing. We want these communities to pull together and work together with each other and their neighbors. I know it's been a tough COVID year. Things have kind of quieted down with the activities that we do there. I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but it's important that we kind of reach out and know who we are living around and who needs help and how to help them improve if they can't do it themselves. And work together with the fire department. This is not power over, we're power with and power within. We need you, the community, to really come in and step in and do, pull up your sleeves and do the work. And we are here to help you as much as we can, but this is really up to you.
Well, speaking of personal responsibility on some level, so Nicholas, you're out there, you are interacting with the public. What kind of response do you get when you bring some of these issues up to the residents out there?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you're out there interacting with the residents and you're pointing out some of these improvements they should be making to make themselves more fire safe. What kind of response do you get to that?
Actually, it's the, wow, I never thought of that. That's a great idea. And a lot of it comes from misconceptions or myths. And I think we're going to talk about that a little later. But it's something like, well, I never thought that this would be a thing, or I should do this, or it's the, I had no idea. That's a great idea. And, that's essentially really the key point of having the assessment, is to have an expert set of eyes to walk around and help educate and create good, a good prescription and a good plan for yourself and your home on how to prepare, because people want to do something, but maybe they just don't know how or where to start, or that was even a thing to do.
Great. Education. It's really important. And if there's one great program that's been funded by the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, it really is these defensible space evaluations and so forth. It's really helpful. It makes a big difference because a lot of people think their home is safe. And like you said, wow, I didn't really realize I could be doing that.
And
So,
you know, Rich, can I say one thing about that?
please.
I really just want the community to know that this is educationally based. It's not compliance based. And so we have some people who call us and ask us some questions and they're a little nervous and they're trying to, you know, touch around like, what does this really mean? And so we have 5 full-time assessors and their job is really just to come out and help you understand how to best improve your specific home and your specific lot with your specific vegetation that you have around it. It's for your use to use, you know, strictly for that reason only. And then we have grants that can help you with the prescription of some of the things that you can and want to improve. Some will be over time. You know, the MWPA has done an incredible thing that really is progressive here in California. It is not too many other places in California are this far along. And we actually have, you know, the MWPA putting in plans for our open spaces, the education with every fire department to the residents, to, you know, offering all these incentives and grants. And it's really incredible that we are this far along. There's a lot of work to do, but I think that people are looking at Marin County saying, wow, they're really being proactive. And so if we can get the community to realize that this is not us, you know, coming at them from a place of power and compliance, and that we're trying to really educate people to make good choices and improve, it's going to make you sleep better at night.
That's just a great philosophy of business. Very good. Well, with that said, let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into defensible space, what it's all about.
I want to illustrate it and bring it to the practical level for homeowners, give you some tips, some ideas of what you can look for and how you can make changes around your home. The first 5 feet is really illustrated right here. We're talking about the surface, the ground, the area right around the outside walls of your house. And we've got a lot of information on home hardening. We've got information on defensible space, landscaping, plant selection. All of these things tie together. They're all important. None of them stand alone. But I really think that we've learned that this zone 0, this first 5 feet, is the most critical place for you to pay attention to. And what I like is that it's also the easiest place for homeowners to take action. So recap here. Most homes are going to ignite from embers. I'm going to show you a couple images that will help you understand what we're talking about when we refer to embers. This is video from a police officer's dashboard cam during the campfire in 2018. You can see the intensity, the number of embers. These are embers blowing across a road. Presumably there are homes in that vicinity. This is a fantastic illustration of what those embers can do, in this case in the forest or grasslands around a community. Again, this is the campfire. These are embers falling from the sky. And look back down when he swings the camera back down. Look what's happened in the few seconds since they turned the camera to the sky. These are spot fires that have ignited in fine grasses, fine vegetation fuels. And frankly, the same thing was happening in the front yards and around the surfaces around homes in that same vicinity. Here's another image, those embers, when they land on surfaces around a home, when they land on the combustible materials around the outside of the home, and your bark mulch, for example, those materials where it will ignite, leaving green trees in the vicinity of this home. This is research that I think Steve was intimately involved in, but it's one of the best illustrations. This is a home that IBHS built in a laboratory setting. The right-hand side of the home is built with ignition-resistant materials. The left-hand side, not so much. The left-hand side used a bark mulch within 5 feet of the structure. The right-hand side used a decorative gravel mulch, and you can see the dramatic difference in the resistance to the embers that are being blown at this building. This is just, the best illustration you're going to see of what we're talking about. This translates directly into the real world. This is a photograph. I apologize that it's blurry. It's the best copy I've been able to find of this picture, but this is a firefighter trying to protect a home during the Woolsey fire in 2018, burning on the same day that the campfire was burning in Northern California. This was in Southern California.
And you can see exactly where the embers are accumulating, and you can see that it's the bark mulch around the exterior of this stucco home that has ignited, giving this firefighter a real run for his money. This is where we tie the home itself, the home hardening work that we want you all to do with zone 0 in this area around the exterior of the house. That's 6 inches closest to the ground, the separation between the ground, and in this case, you can even see leaf litter on the ground, and the combustible wood shingle siding. That's the critical 6 inches. Our goal is to keep the fire from spreading from the ground to the structure itself, and creating that separation. In this case, it's 6 inches of exposed foundation that separates the place where the embers will accumulate and the siding itself. Very important. This is an example image from a home in Marin County. This is a home, I apologize that I'm not backed up farther in the image, but what you see here is non-combustible siding. This is hardy shingles with an ember and fire resistant vent, a Vulcan brand vent, and a concrete pathway around the exterior of the house. You're going to see more images from this in a second. So those things tie together that the structure, or separate the structure from zone 0. And as we've already covered, mulch, your choice in mulch within 5 feet of the structure is absolutely critical. This is an image of a gorilla hair, shredded redwood or shredded cedar type mulch, very commonly used. It's has its purpose in certain situations, but this material does not belong adjacent to your house. What we want to see for homeowners, and this is a simple change that you can make around your structure, we want to see you choose rock or gravel mulch. We want to see non-combustible, non-organic materials used as mulch immediately adjacent to the home. Wood chips or bark are out. They have their place in your yard more than 5 feet from your structure. Shredded redwood needs to be applied very carefully. It's the easiest to ignite. I always point out that that's what the Cub Scouts use to start their campfires. So you want to be very judicious with its use around your home if you live in the wildland-urban interface. Here's an image. This is from the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa in 2017. This is a home, bark mulch. You can see one of the homes is actually burning in the background, the other is destroyed, and you can see how easily the bark mulch around the outside of the house has ignited. We're talking myth busting tonight, defensible space. That vegetation absolutely needs to go. There's no doubt about it. That's a poor choice in vegetation, but that's not all that defensible space is. The choice in vegetation is one small aspect of creating defensible space. Defensible space is not just about the plants. It's about the design. It's about the way you maintain that landscape. It's about the features that you build into your landscape, the permanent features, not just the plants. This is a great photograph just 2 years ago at the Kincaid Fire in Sonoma County, showing very clearly how a landscaping feature, in this case a retaining wall, is helping direct heat away from the house. We hear from people all the time that defensible space, creating defensible space, improving their landscaping is gonna ruin their landscaping. They don't want to see the change in their landscaping. One of the best examples we've seen of a transformation in a yard. Here's the before photo. Here's the after photo. Same photo, same angle. The issues that this homeowner were confronted with were an old wooden staircase that was attached to the house, several inches of bark mulch, a bamboo hedge towards the back of the house and along the side of the house, a dead tree in the yard, and frankly, some areas that weren't landscaped, weren't particularly attractive, which changed to this: attractive use of succulents, use of decorative gravel within 5 feet of the structure. Again, we're not asking anybody to clear all of the vegetation in their yard, but we want people to know that a defensible space, again, not just about the landscaping or the vegetation in your yard, the landscaping features, the other features, the combustible materials in your yard can have just as big an impact on whether your home's going to survive. In this case, a fence. We've talked at length about the importance of protecting fences, making sure that fences are not attached to your structure.
This is a great example of a yard that has fantastic defensible space in most senses, but that fence carried the fire directly to the home. This is probably the big one, the mother of all myths. My neighbor's tree is an extreme fire hazard. I have an inbox full of messages that say just that. People write to us, they call us, they're concerned about their neighbor's tree, oftentimes concerned about their own trees. We want people to look down, not necessarily up, when they're thinking about their defensible space. This is a photograph of the Scripps Ranch community in Southern California. This is a neighborhood that was surrounded by eucalyptus trees. Every home had trees in their side yard, their front yard, and their backyard, and every tree survived. None of the homes survived. This gets to the point we make often, that your homes are most vulnerable to embers. The defensible space is not harmful to the environment, although there is a myth floating around that creating defensible space creates harm to animals, plants, insects, and the landscape. This is not the case. You can have a healthy native landscape that's lush, well-maintained, and fire resilient. Myth: defensible space means cutting down trees. This is not the case. Again, we're not talking about the trees when we talk about defensible space, at least not the canopies of them. We want you to look towards the ground. We want you to look at the space around those trees. We want you to maintain a healthy natural forest around your property. This is a community that was losing their native oak woodlands to invasive species like French broom, Scotch broom, and acacia. By restoring the meadow that normally had surrounded these oak trees, they're restoring the health of the native oak forest, and they're improving their fire resiliency. The myth is defensible space means my house will defend itself. The defensible and defensible space refers to firefighters. Defensible space as a concept goes back decades, and it really goes back to creating a space that's safe for firefighters to operate. It creates a space around a home where firefighters can protect the home, the firefighters do the defending, and the defensible space makes it safe for them to do that. In California, there are a variety of laws and codes and ordinances that address defensible space, and they address the defensible space around your home in using this theory of zones. Zone 0 to 5 feet, is going to be addressed by a new law, a change to California Public Resources Code that'll come into effect starting this year and be phased in over the next 3 years. And that's going to address a number of items that we know now are extremely important to the survival of your home, the combustibles within 5 feet of your walls. Zone 1, 5 feet to 30 feet, is a space where the CAL FIRE and the state law addresses it directly as the lean, clean, and green zone. This is an area where we want to see no dead vegetation at all. Grasses must be cut to 3 inches or less. Trees need to be limbed up 6 feet from the ground or a third the height of the tree. And we want to see spacing put between shrubs and plants. From 30 to 100 feet, the law requires that you provide basic maintenance, not removal of trees, removal of dead vegetation only. You don't necessarily, under the law, need to cut your dry grasses from 30 to 100 feet, although we strongly recommend that. When we look at this in relation to how homes actually ignite, I'm going to close with this. It's a reminder that 60 to 90% of homes lost during wildfires ignite from the embers that land on them or within 5 feet of them. There's nothing in the current law that addresses this issue. So when we talk about defensible space, when we talk about defensible space as a law, when we look at it as a law enforcement issue, we're really focusing on 10% of the homes that are lost during wildfires. But it's important to note that 100% of the homes that don't have defensible space are vulnerable during a wildfire.
All right. Over here at Fire Safe Marin, we just were thrilled with Todd's approach about myth busting in that. And in fact, you're going to hear the myth busting theme as a big part of future webinars over here at Fire Safe Marin. We think there's a lot of value in that. And for those who aren't familiar with our webinars, every month We do a webinar, different topics, different presenters. I think they're kind of engaging. I hope you all will tune into them. So Nicholas, again, you're out there in the field. Do you think, as Todd pointed out, there are a lot of myths with the public about what the problems are?
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and most commonly the ones I hear the most are very similar and almost exactly the same ones that Todd spoke about. The ones I hear the most are that it's more of I can stay back and protect my home. I have a garden hose, and we absolutely don't recommend that. I would like to speak to that person if they think that that's an actual real plan. It's totally not. Another one I hear often is my home is perfect. I did work already. It's WUI compliant. I would still love to see that home. We don't see enough of them, actually. And that would be a great training opportunity if there was a WUI compliant home. We want to know where that home is. We would love to see it. Another one I hear often is I have gutter screens. I don't need to clean my gutters. Gutter screens don't ever replace gutter cleaning. It just makes it a little more easier or low maintenance. It's still recommended to do that at least several times a year. Yeah, those are really the most common ones, and those are the people I really like to speak to the most, because that's really an opportunity to change the thinking and the process of how a homeowner perceives fire, or how they perceive their home as it's prepared for fire. And that's really the best educational opportunity right there.
That's great. So Yvette, I'm not sure if Defensible Space is the name of your program up there. I think it might be different in Novato. But could you tell us a little bit about how the program works and the evaluations are done and so forth?
Absolutely. We have two types of inspections. We have a roadside inspection where we are basically going down the street from the sidewalk. We take a picture of the home. We only can see the front side. Sometimes we can't see the long driveway. Maybe we only see the mailbox in the driveway. So residents in Novato will receive a roadside. It'll say Novato resident. It'll be their address, a picture of the front of their lot, of however we see it. And there'll be some notes on there. And we have verbiage in there that we want people to call us for a full inspection. It'll say non-WUI compliant. We can't see all four sides of the building. This is okay. It's just an invitation for you to call us so we can have an assessment done in person, and you can get a prescription for your structure and your surrounding and defensible space. The second run is if you call us for a full assessment, then it takes 30, 35, 40 minutes, and we set up a time that's appropriate for you. At this time with COVID, we all wear masks, and we keep apart, and we don't go into the structure, and we have the resident walk around the building with us, and we have a conversation. We take pictures along the way, and you'll get, a few page report. It could be 3 pages, 6 pages, depending on how many pictures we're taking or how large the property is. And it will have everything from the home all the way out to where your fence line is. And it'll give you examples of ways and things that you can do to improve your defensible space. It might be separation, it may be limbing up trees, or pulling the bark away from the home and putting in gravel or decorative rock. And so these are all suggestions, recommendations. We really focus on zone 0, which is the first 5 feet. And then after you've had a home assessment with one of the mitigation specialists, you then are eligible to participate in our grant program. And we have 2 grants. And what I'm going to do is have Nicholas talk a little bit more about the grants, if that's okay.
Yeah. So our grant program there are 2 grants. One is a home hardening grant, which is designed to make improvements to your physical structure. Most commonly, people use that grant for windows, to replace maybe single pane windows to dual pane tempered windows. They can install the vent screens. They can install gutter screens. They can make improvements to their siding. That is only if you have a full assessment, you receive that pre-qualifying application. The vegetation matching grant is utilized to make improvements to your landscape. Primarily, it is also beneficial to use it if you have fire hazardous vegetation. We recommend that you remove that fire hazardous vegetation. You can also use it to purchase the small rock that Todd Lando talked about to put the areas closest to your home instead of that bark. You can use it to pay someone to clean your gutters if you're not a fan of getting up on a ladder and cleaning your gutters a couple times a year. But we can recommend these things, but really the biggest first step is to have us out for an assessment so we can discuss the ways to best utilize that matching grant program.
Well, that's great. I think it is really exciting. Novato, if you're a resident of Novato, this is kind of unique the way they do it up there. A lot of places are not able to sort of do the evaluations by scheduling, and then the follow-up and the grants is just, it's a fantastic way to do it. I think you should really be applauded. Yvette?
And Rich, I think I said an inspection, but it's not an inspection, it's an assessment. So this is compliance-based. Once again, I know I said it earlier. These are assessments. They are for educational purposes only. They're not used for, they're not given to anybody. They're only given to you. And then it's used for your reference if you wanted to use it for your contractors or your workers, or just for a reminder of looking forward of what we talked about. And then when you call us back in the next year, we do work in a fiscal year. So we do work July 1st to June 30th. So we're going to be closing down this grant process here in Novato on June 15th. And then the new fiscal year for the 2021-22 will start on July 1st. If people are in that process right now and they're worried that they may not get it in, it's okay. You won't qualify for this year, but it'll roll into next year. We just always encourage everybody that you need to have an assessment first, and you'll have to have that assessment done every year to have the grants processed properly. But it's always just about the educational start. So we keep having the conversation and reminding you of the points that maybe we forgot. And I have our 5 assessors have zones. And so we have they have leads in all the fire-wise communities. Not that they can't all go into all of Novato, but we do have people that you will be able to contact again and again and again. You won't have to constantly have somebody new, so you can build that rapport.
That's wonderful. Just a great program. You know, one of the things that we saw that I think is underappreciated sometimes, we really got this from Mark Brown's walkthrough, is the role of mulch. You know, people, oh, it's the tree and then it's the big bush and it's the tall grass. But a lot of the fire spread that we saw up there around where Mark lived in the glass fire was really because of flammable mulches. I got a neighbor down the street, just did a bunch of work, and I swear it just covered the property in light gorilla hair mulch. I got like, we're missing the boat here. What do you see out there, Nicholas, about the mulching?
It's a cost-effective aesthetic that people like to put down. It's not ideal. It's not recommended. But maybe that homeowner didn't know that. But you know, we have the matching grants available to create that beneficial hardscape, that small rock. We would much rather see that. But again, this isn't enforcement based. This is recommendation based. We really want to leave the homeowner with the understanding of why this is not ideal and why this other recommendation would be a better benefit as it relates to defensible space and your landscape.
Great. So that I mentioned earlier, the chipper program has just gotten started. It's bigger than ever. So there's curbside chipper service available for every resident in Marin County. And there's 2 opportunities to go through. It just got started this week, but we're already noticed that the subscription is a little bit low. So there's a lot of openings out there. How does that fit into the program you have up there, the chipper days?
Yeah, so Fire Safe Marin just rolled out their first day on May 17th, and that was the first chipper day. And so they have 16 more, I believe, planned through Fire Safe Marin, which is fantastic. In addition to Novato Fire from the MWPA money that we received from that program are scheduled for the 2021-22 year, 75 days of chipper days. So that's going to be rolling out here for this next fiscal year. And we just need to get the word out. So we're going to be start using social media. We're going to be putting, things into the paper. We really want our Firewise communities to let everybody, all your block captains know, and let your residents know that this is available. I know with Fire Safe Marin, if I'm correct, Rich, they go onto your website and they schedule the appointment. It used to be you had to take your stuff to a site, or, now they're coming to your door. So you put it out on your curbside and they're able to take, the appropriate size vegetation that the work that you've done and haul it away for you. So it's an incredibly important, valuable asset that we need to utilize. And I think for most of the residents, we just have to work on getting the word out that we have it there and how to get those appointments going. And then to utilize it, because it's going to really make a difference.
It's not too soon to start the work. So let's get out there.
It's not too early. You can do it
And
all
it's
year
very,
long.
there you go. And
There's
the
gonna be many
address,
opportunities.
we'll put it in the chat box or put it on the Q&A for everybody to see. But it's chipperday.com/Marin. And you go on there, all the information you need to register is on there.
Correct.
Great. So you've heard a lot about Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. I'd like to shift gears a little bit here and let you hear from Bruce Goyne, who's the president of the board of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. You've already become acquainted with Mark Brown, the executive officer, but they're going to tell you a little bit more about that organization and its impact on Marin.
Hi, my name is Bruce Goins. I'm honored to be serving as the president of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. I came here with 45 years as a wildland firefighter and a forester, and managing statewide programs to help communities reduce their wildfire risk. Here in Marin, we're in a very special place. We have the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, which is a 10-year initiative, and all of our tax dollars are being invested back into the community to help reduce the risk of the inevitable wildfire. I want to just give you a little history, very brief, as to why the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority was created. I think we all know the fires, catastrophic fires that have occurred all around us, to the north, to the east, to the south. Particularly last year was particularly bad. Your County Board of Supervisors had some vision after the Tubbs fire, which resulted in catastrophic events for Santa Rosa and Coffee Park. Your Board of Supervisors commissioned a group of firemen, law enforcement officials, city managers, and county administrators to take a look at what happened up in the North Bay, and what can we learn from that? What can we do to reduce the risk of something like that occurring here in Marin County? So they put together a team who produced a report. It's called the 2017 Lessons Learned Report, which you can find on the MWPA website if you're interested. But the bottom line was, it said that we needed to coalesce, to bring all the resources together, all the fire agencies together, all the cities together, and coalesce and figure out and take an aggressive program to reduce our risks. Secondly, the next year, the county supervisors, again, with that report, the 2019 civil grand jury took up this topic. And the civil grand jury affirmed the 2017 lessons report. And in essence, they said, we need to take this one step further. We need to develop a reliable funding source, and we need for all of our fire agencies to coalesce under a joint powers authority. Then came in 2020 Measure C, and there are a handful of people in the room that you're in who were integral to Measure C coming up to the ballot. Morning, noon, and night, they talked with fire districts, city managers, and in essence, Measure C was passed in 2020. It was one of 4 tax initiatives, the only one that passed. And now we have a 10-year opportunity, $20 million a year, $200 million, and which we expect to match through matching funds. But here we are, $20 million a year. The opportunity, 60% of these funds are for vegetation management and clearing, preparing evacuation routes, fire detection and public education. 20% is for defensible space evaluations, and 20% is for local mitigation projects. It's a phenomenal opportunity. This is the opportunity for you, the citizen. I believe your county board of supervisors has done their work. I think the fire chiefs are doing their work, and city managers. And this is the time for you, the public, to basically take responsibility and address the hazards and the risks and potentially reduce the potential consequences of a very catastrophic event. So thanks very much.
Hi, my name is Mark Brown, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Officer for the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. That's after 30 years of serving with the Marin County Fire Department and retiring as the Deputy Fire Chief. At the MWPA, our current focus is home hardening, because what we've learned during catastrophic fires and urban conflagrations is that it's the homes that turn into the primary carrier of fire. And if we can eliminate homes from catching on fire, we can start decreasing the catastrophic nature of these fires. So we want our homes to be hardened so they don't ignite. The next step is that we want a 5-foot non-combustible zone that surrounds our homes so that when embers land around our home, there's nothing to catch them on fire and then catch the house on fire. And then we want to look at smart firescape landscaping to create defensible space. We're not asking people to remove their vegetation. We're asking them to look at how they arrange their vegetation, both horizontally and vertically. We want an ember to land, preferably self-extinguish. But if it doesn't self-extinguish, we want whatever it catches on fire doesn't spread to something else and it just stays within that area. And then finally, we are focused on an evacuation route clearing. There's just so much work that needs to be done. We are so far behind in our vegetation management at a countywide level. Our primary goal is to get people out safely. So we are focusing hard on our evacuation route clearing. To that end, we've purchased the Zone Haven evacuation management platform so we can streamline our evacuation systems. They are not replacing anything that we have currently in place. They aren't replacing, Zone Haven will not replace our notification systems. It will not replace law enforcement or fire going door to door, knocking on your door, telling you it's time to leave. But what it does, it gives us more information so that we can plan better prior to an emergency and during an emergency so we can get people out safer. We are also conducting a study of our ingress and egress routes throughout the county. That way we can evaluate which routes need to be worked on and we can prioritize and get the routes that need the work the most done right away. Our current schedule of projects includes chipper days to support the homeowners with their defensible space work. Low-income defensible space grants, so those who don't have the financial resources to do the work around their home can tap into those grants in order to make their home safe. Along with their home being safe, that makes the rest of the community safe. And then we are looking at creating home hardening matching grants. So residents that want to work on their home, make their homes harden so they are less likely to ignite, we will match what they are spending in order for them to improve their homes. We discussed the evacuation route clearing. We see that as one of our most important things that we'll be doing this year. And then we will be working on fuel reduction projects in and around our homes near the open space, the wildland-urban interface boundary. We want to create a space where a catastrophic fire could come into and then actually decrease in intensity as it enters into our homes. And we're going to do that with shaded fuel breaks along that wildland-urban interface boundary. And then you're participating in one of our primary tools right now, and that is public education. And what we found is the more the public understands about wildfire and what they can do and what their responsibility is for wildland fire, the safer our communities will be. And thank you for attending. Thank you for being a part of the solution. And thank you for helping decrease the risk to wildfire in Marin.
Just a little recap there with Mark and Bruce and everybody over there at MWPA is really doing a fantastic job. They're working very hard. We're probably not appreciating all the projects they have. We mentioned the chipper days. Like Yvette said, well, the Fire Safe Marin chipper days, yeah, we're managing it, but the funding of it is coming from Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. All of this is your tax dollars at work. The reason we have this program tonight, MWPA. So it's really doing a lot, the space inspections, and there's a lot of larger fuel management projects that are really important that are coming down the road. So stay tuned, very exciting stuff. Tax dollars at work, all good stuff. I do want to give a little extra shout out and thanks too to Chief Bill Tyler, who really was instrumental in getting Measure C passed, not just getting the NWPA stood up, but he's very involved in it day to day to make sure that everything is going along smoothly. I have a chance to work with him on a regular basis, and another unsung hero doing a great job out there. So thanks to all of that. So one of the things that Mark mentioned in there was that, you've heard it a lot, but home hardening. I could tell you 5 or 10 years ago, we really weren't talking about that. Everything was defensible space, defensible space. But these North Bay fires, the science from those fires is what's really led to this fire adapted communities, the vulnerability of homes, the ember showers, how those homes ignite in a way that we didn't understand before. So home hardening is sort of the buzzword these days, and it's our big area of focus. So let's tune in to a video about home hardening.
You need to harden your home. That's why you're here tonight. I'll just point out that the video that's playing there in the background, that's a home in Napa County, Oakville. It's one of the highest homes anywhere in Napa County. It was impacted by this fire, the one that you see there, in October of 2016. This was about a 50-acre fire that started on the roadside and burned directly up to the house, impacted the house. The house escaped this fire undamaged. There was no insurance claim on this property besides a solar panel array that was down the hill in the bushes. The house itself undamaged. 1 year later, almost to the day the Nuns fire started, it was one of the North Bay fires. Started overnight, burned 50,000 acres, and on day 3 of the fire, it impacted this house directly from the other side. The side that you don't see burning here burned 1 year later. The house again escaped undamaged. The reasons for that are the way the house was designed, the materials that were used to build the house, and careful thought to building a fire-resistant structure.
The best place to start when talking about your ignition zones is the actual home and structure itself. And that's where the term home hardening comes in. Home hardening refers to the maintenance of your structure and the upkeep, as well as the building materials that you've applied to your home.
One of the most interesting concepts that have come out of the studies that have been done on the fires, the large fires that have happened throughout the United States over the past couple years, is this idea that it's not the flame front that actually destroys your house. It's the flying ember storm that will do that damage. So hardening your home actually becomes a very, very important part of this whole wildfire preparedness plan. When it comes to home hardening, there's 2 aspects or 2 ways to look at it. The first is the actual construction of the building itself, and when we look at that side, we see things such as the materials that the roof is made of, the material that your siding is made of, what is actually touching the ground, and we also look at the soffits of the house, for example. Are they closed in or are they open? And then the other aspect that we look at is maintenance. So when we talk about maintenance, we're talking about things like, what are you storing under your deck? What do you have up in your gutters? Do you have leaves that have fallen in there that need to be taken care of? Do you need to clean off your roof? If you have a log cabin, are all the holes filled in with putty? The house behind me has some really great examples of home hardening from the construction standpoint. Right next to the ground, there's nothing that's combustible there. The rock goes clear down to the ground, and for the first several feet coming up, there's no way for a fire on the ground to get into the house. The siding above the rock is limited combustible. That means that it does have the ability to burn, but it's treated with a substance that will prevent it from actually sustaining fire. A lot of the times people like to have a wood siding on their house, and that's okay as long as it's installed correctly and you are using the correct materials. So if you look at the soffits in this house, they're boxed in, and what that does is it protects those areas from collecting any of these flying embers that happen to come along during a wildfire event. And then especially nice on this house is the metal and asphalt shingle roof. This house has a combined, a combo style covering, which is just fine. Both of them are very good at keeping those embers from having a place where a fire can start. Having a redwood deck or a deck that's made of combustible materials is not the end of the world. If you do have that type of deck, you certainly don't need to tear it out. You just need to do a little bit of maintenance on it. Make sure it's treated with a non-combustible sealant. From a home hardening aspect, maintenance is probably the most important thing you can do. No matter what your house is made out of, no matter what material you have on the side of your house, what material your deck is made out of, or what material you have on the roof, that has to be maintained. If you look around your house and you find places where the wind blows leaves, those are the same places where embers are going to come in a firestorm. And those are the same places where those embers will sit there and smolder until the conditions are just right for them to ignite whatever they've landed in. Another large risk for your house is openings. Any opening that goes into your attic, any vents in your soffits or vents even in your gables or on the side of your house, they have the potential of collecting flying embers. Back in the day, we used to put 1/4 inch mesh on these openings to keep things from getting in. The latest science from the large fires that we've had within the United States over the past couple of years has shown us that that 1/4 inch mesh is not tight enough.
I am inspired by the Park City Fire Department, and I'm going to harden my home. I'm going to change my attic vents, and I'm going to put screening underneath my decks. And I'm going to teach you how to do it. Let's go. First thing you need to know is I am not a handyman, but I'm going to go for this because I need to make my house more safe. Remove that screen. I can do it. You can do it. Embers out. Measure it first. That is a 2-inch opening, and there is a stock 2-inch vent for you at the hardware store. You're going to use those pliers to pull that wire. You're going to use that hammer to tap in the new vent, and you're going to use that sandpaper to clear out paint and gunk so that vent slides in easily. They are a little fragile. Don't hit them too hard. There's the vents you have to choose from. I chose those Ember vents with 16-inch screen on the backside. Vulcan vents have a different system, and I'll show you. There's the ones I got, 44 of them for around my house, about $1.50 each. This is the Vulcan vent. It's got louvers that keep out the embers, lots of teeny louvers. And on the other side is a honeycomb that will melt if it is exposed to high heat. These are double the price of the vents I went with, so I went on a budget. But I did sand them in carefully, and I worked hard to get them in, and I sanded, and I sanded, and I sanded to get them in. And once you've sanded enough, they slide right in. If you do not sand enough, they will bend and bend. Bend and bend. Here we are. Also, as you make your way around your house, it's a good idea to get some caulk and just fill in holes, any kind of crack or groove that you think maybe embers could embed in, and start a smoldering fire. It's thorough, it's good, and now you're done. Look at those vents. The louvers are pointed down. They're in. It's time for some more paint and sanding and make my house more beautiful. But before I do that, I want to work on my low deck out back. It needs some love too. I went and got some screening materials. I got a roll of 1/8-inch stainless steel metal mesh. Easy for me to say. And then I went to my crusty deck and I turned it a little less crusty. I cleaned it up and I got ready to apply the mesh. I measured down and I cut extra. Mesh is malleable. I measured long. It can be formed to the space, but if it's too small, you can't fit it in. And here's some tools I used. First, I used that grinder. Now, everybody doesn't have a grinder. You can also use some tin snips, and I'll show you what that looks a little later. As I grinded, it was a little wild and fast, and sparks were flying. Not recommended for the dry season. This is a winter project, spring. You don't want to do it during fire season. These are the tin snips that worked really well. It cut like butter and it was under control. I probably will use these from the future. And here we are underneath. I tacked it up with the staples and just made sure it all fit. And then I came back with my screw gun and made sure it was tight up against the wood. We don't want embers to slip through. Really what you're doing is you're making sure that no leaf matter or sticks or twigs will blow in during our fog season when the wind howls and would push in unwanted material. And then if you happen to have an ember storm, then that material could kindle and catch this deck. And then I put some rock down even to make sure it would stay down and it wouldn't be up against the dirt and it wouldn't rot as quickly. And this is what it looks like when it's done. It's ready for some more hardscaping. I did put some weed cloth down so the weeds wouldn't come up again. And you can do this as well. Good job, people. You can do it. You know what the steps take. And thank you for making Marin a little bit more fire safe.
All right, so when we were putting together that series of videos, we had a little controversy on our team. We thought we'd go for a little bit of change of pace. Thank you, Park City. I think they did a good job. Believe it or not, it's actually hard to find homes in Marin County that are constructed where you can see the elements as well as you can in that home. That's why we picked it. Obviously brand new, but that's a home that's being built in a forest with fir and pine trees and whatnot that are really a lot more flammable than the oaks and the bays and what we typically have around here. And that's a home that's going to survive. You can really see that it's a first-rate job in there. It was kind of fun to see the snow there and whatnot, so a little change of pace, but we thank them for that. And then do it yourself. You know, some of it are do-it-yourselfers. Not everybody's an expert. There are some basic things that are worth going out there. If you're a little bit handy, you can take on your own. And we run into this all the time. Oh, I can't harden my home. Everything is just too expensive. No, there are things that you can do that are pretty basic that'll get you started on this. That's another thing we're going to be trying to do in Fire Safe Marin is sort of try to create some sort of scaling of projects for what's kind of simple and very affordable, going up a little bit more complicated, just to get people started doing things. So anyway, all that said, I'm going to ask Yvette what is really going to be the hardest question of the night. There's no correct answer to it, but if you're going to make a recommendation to a homeowner, what do you think the most important thing they can do is for hardening their home?
Well, I'm going to go with education because then I can educate them about every component of their house.
Very clever, very clever.
Clever, because I don't want to pick just one, right? I mean, gutters are as important as your vents, as important as your windows. It really comes down to, this is what I like to tell people. You know what? It's kind of windy right now. Today's is a windy day. Tomorrow morning, it might be a little, less. Grab a cup of coffee, go outside your house and walk around and look at the first 5 feet of your house. See where things collect and see where your nooks and crannies are. See where the leaves are. See where the debris went from last night. I know my yard right now, I live here in Novato right now, is pretty messy because of all the wind that we've been having, but it really is a great roadmap to show me where it's going to collect. And then look at that area. Do I have gaps? I am going to be changing out my vents. My vents are 1/4 inch. That is my big project this year. So I'm in the same boat as everybody else. I have gutter guards, but I don't have the proper size vents. So that is on my to-do list. That is getting done in July. And so I'm looking at, I did caulk some of my gaps, but I didn't do all of them. So I have to revisit it because I didn't finish the job. It's very time, it takes a lot of time to do it, some work, maybe, economics is a little, difficult, but it really helps me to take a really good, strong look to see what my house is made out of. I have T111 siding, and if I'm going to upgrade, I'm going to go to cement board. That's a choice I'm going to make because that'll give me more improvement. I'm not there yet. That's a little bit bigger ticket item. I definitely can do the vent screens. I definitely have already, last year I did the gutter guards. So we try to get people think little things they can do and then think about the bigger ones. And, most of my windows are okay. Some of them are not. They're going to need to be replaced, but they're definitely going to be double pane tempered when I do replace them. So this is the educational part, that we get to teach you all about the things that are going to improve your home hardening and make that difference so it can hold up to the ember storm. And you just really need to understand where your vulnerability is. And that's what my great specialists can do, is go and walk you around and give you the roadmap and make it clear as day this is what can really improve your home.
Oh, that's great. I love the personal candor, because to tell the truth, there are very few homes in Marin that would be considered pristine. And all of us, we have to, kind of chip away at it. I would be embarrassed to tell you some of the things I still need to do in my house, but that's the way I'm doing, a little bit at a time. So that's a really good answer.
We're not asking for perfection. We're asking for progression. We're just going to keep working at it to making it better each year. And so, the MWPA and the Measure C is your tax dollars at work, and it's here for 10 years. So you have opportunities here to really make strides on your structure. Most of our homes have all been built in Novato. We were telling people to put in juniper because it was drought tolerant. And now we're like, oh my goodness, we have learned with fire season and fire science that is not but this is what we did in the 60s. That was what they suggested. And so now we have to kind of, we have to adapt. We have to make some different choices and look at it to say, what can I do to best improve my home hardening and my defensible space, the things that are up against my home. And it's really that educational component that we get people to understand, hey, don't focus over the fence. Turn around with your cup of coffee and look real close, look down, like Todd says, look down, right? Or Mark says, look down, don't look up and over, because that is really where the crucial space is.
Absolutely. Thank you. A lot of Marin is older. Not too much of it looks like the area that Mark Brown showed where he lives up there. And Sausalito does not look like Mill Valley, does not look like Central San Rafael and so forth. And there's a number of different neighborhoods in Novato that have been built at different times. So Nicholas, are there some sort of general characteristics of some neighborhoods that might define a little bit more the home hardening issues within Novato?
I would think some of the newer neighborhoods that are out near like Stone Tree or off of Olive near Atherton, those have better material characteristics. But there are people who live in every neighborhood that are still making improvements to their home, and everyone can make improvements to their home. So just because you don't live in one of those neighborhoods doesn't mean that you still can't do these things. Every example that was shown towards the end of that video of, going to the store and get these louver vents and put in some rock, all of those things we have matching grants for. Everything that individual did, you can utilize the matching grant program for that. So just because you live in a neighborhood that might be older than other parts of Novato, there's certainly something you can do, and we have programs available for you to do those things.
Wow, that's great. When the home assessments are being done, are they also looking at the home hardening characteristics, or is it just vegetation?
So when we conduct home assessments, we are doing defensible space and home hardening hand in hand. It's a package deal. So have us out for an assessment and we can discuss what you can do short-term and long-term for home hardening and vegetation. I don't treat each home as this is another assessment. I don't think that's fair to the homeowner. I highly personalize this process. There is not a cookie cutter approach to this. Everyone's home is different. Everyone's resources are different. Everyone's landscape is different. And what your neighbor does across the street could be a good thing, but it may not be the thing you need to do. But having that educational component, like Yvette was speaking about, is absolutely key in understanding why it's necessary and why you need to do it.
Speaking with both of you, I think if there's one big takeaway tonight, if you live in Novato and you're not taking advantage of these assessments and grants, you're really missing the boat. It's a wonderful program up there. Yvette?
There's one other thing I wanted to point out is I know that people are getting the reports and it says non-WUI compliant, and it makes people very upset. And I said, you just have to understand that there's not that many homes that are WUI compliant. So that shouldn't be something that bogs people down and gets them upset. WUI compliant would mean that every component of your house, material wise, was appropriate. So it would be like maybe stucco siding or cement siding. Every window was double pane tempered. Your gutters were not vinyl, they were metal. So you have to go through every component. So people get stuck on, oh no, I got the title of non-WUI compliant. Well, on the reports that come from the roadside, we only see one side of the house, and it may look good, but we haven't seen all three sides. And so I think it's important that people don't get caught up on WUI. And WUI, I don't think we've defined that, is wildland urban interface. And so if you go to Marin Maps, you can see if your home sits in the WUI or not in the WUI. But the wonderful thing about Novato Fire and Chief Tyler is every resident in Novato is important. Everybody, doesn't matter if you're in the WUI or out of the WUI, qualifies for this program. And it doesn't matter your financial status, if you're lower income or higher income, everybody is equal. If you're a Novato resident and you reside in the Novato Fire District, you qualify. You're as important as anybody else. And it's important that each person each family takes on their structure, their occupancy, and does the best they can for themselves. And we are here to support every single one of you.
That's great. Nicholas?
One last thing is these assessments that can be scheduled. This isn't a one-time thing. You can have us out more than once. You can reach out to us. We are very accessible. You can find our phone numbers on novatofire.org. You can email us. We are very transparent. We want you to reach us, and we want this to be a revisit prescription for you, where I'm going out to homes that I visited last year and people want to know what they can do this year. So this isn't just a one-time assessment thing. It's free. You can access us as often as you like for those questions.
That's great. So we talked about we all need to take some responsibility. We all need to adapt, but sometimes we need a little help from the community. So let's take a look at how community preparedness can help with all this process.
Hello. Hi. My name is Nancy. I'm the leader of the local Firewise site for the neighborhood. Okay. And we're all about helping each other fire harden our homes and our gardens.
Oh, well, I could sure use help. I mean, I don't know what you can do, but it's such a mess down there.
Oh, that would be wonderful, because we are looking to come together and help out with some gardens that need some extra love and care. And is that something that we could do?
That would be fantastic.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. When do you do that?
Well, we try to do it every Saturday or every other Saturday, or just when people can make it, and some people might be able to show up on Saturday, and I think we can pull it together. Would that be good?
That would be fantastic.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So 10 o'clock on Saturday?
Wonderful, yeah. I'll see you there.
Great. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey Ronan, I think Finn's gonna need a walk. Can you take him?
Oh yeah. Hey guys, this is an alert from Alert Marin. There's a fire in the area. The Embers shower could happen anytime with these high winds. We need to go.
Okay, let's get going. It's a red flag day, so I've got everything right there inside the door. We've got the to-go bag. I think I've got my glasses. I've got medicine, ID. You two get the puppy in the kennel and load him in the car.
Let's make sure Miss Benson, our neighbor, also has gotten the alert and that she's aware that we have to get going.
Great. Let's get our masks. Get long sleeve shirts, hats. Let's get going.
Hey, Miss Benson, we just got an alert from Alert Marin. There's a fire in the area, and
Where?
we're going to get some ember showers. It's right up on the hill.
Oh my
It's
God.
time to go. Can you get your important papers
Yes.
and your medicines or anything else you need?
I don't have a car.
You could fit in with us. Why don't you come with us then?
Okay. I'll be ready in a few minutes.
All right, sounds
okay.
good.
You want me to get him?
Welcome to Fire Safe Marin's webinar series.
Our fire season has increased by about 75 days a year.
This is how you will receive your emergency notifications.
We continued to go away from the fire, and at this point we started realizing it was around us. We're seeing flames.
We at FireSafe Marin are excited to be sponsoring a chipper event in your neighborhood. This video shares some simple guidelines for you to prepare your chipper pile to ensure that it will be picked up.
Wildfires have always been a part of California, but recently we've had more fires and they've been more destructive than ever before. That's why we've created this program for you. It's called Ready, Set, Go. When we think of defensible space, it's helpful to imagine different zones, depending on the distance from the building we want to protect. Today, we're only going to talk about the most important of the defensible space zones. Studies have shown that 60 to 90% of homes destroyed in wildfires are ignited by tiny embers.
Hi, I'm Faye Mark from the University of California Marin Master Gardeners. We're often asked the question, what are the safest plants? Truth is, all plants burn. When it comes to fire-smart landscaping, it's much more important to consider where a plant is situated and how it is maintained than to assume some plants are better than others.
In the long run, loss of pollinators could create a shift in vegetation with plant reproduction favored by wind pollination. Wind-pollinated species include grasses and pine trees, which tend to be more fire-prone. Fire safety can be both beautiful and support biodiversity. We can have it all with careful planning.
How does working as a community help improve fire safety?
You can't do everything. You can work on your own property and do everything you need, vegetation management, house hardening, and then if your neighbors don't know what to do or are unaware of the whole process, you're still vulnerable. So when you work together as a neighborhood, you're able to learn how to do it and what to do, and everybody becomes jointly embarked on the same project. I also noticed a very surprising element about forming a Firewise community, and that is that even people who aren't actively members of our group, they might be in a nearby neighborhood or even in our neighborhood but not participating. Once they see us start doing the work, it's a process of modeling. All of a sudden, without us saying anything, they're doing the work themselves. And areas that were completely overgrown are within a month or two suddenly getting clearer. And you can see that they're aware that this is an issue and they're taking it on board and doing it on their own initiative. So that has been a very gratifying area for just seeing how people are responding to the whole neighborhood at work.
It is making sure that everybody gets the information that we want to get to them about a chipper day or a broom pull.
The hardest part is the initial outreach. If you have it on your mind you want to form a community and you haven't done this kind of work before, it can be a little intimidating to reach out. And I think that's the hardest step, is to reach out and find some like-minded neighbors who are also worried about it. The way we did it was we simply put a notice on next door saying, hello neighbor, are you concerned about wildfire in your neighborhood? And suggested a meeting time. And the next step is, having got a few neighbors involved, is we did some door knocking. Obviously in the time of COVID, it's hard to do that. But you can leave information on people's doorknobs or doorsteps, and built our database. And that's really very important, because once you have your database, you have the people that you reach out to. They don't have to be the people who come to the meetings. They just are people who are interested in the topic. And then once we're all connected, we started the process, and it was very straightforward.
The Firewise community is a way of getting people to address a problem. So people looking at Paradise, looking at the Napa and Santa Rosa fires, we're ready to say, yeah, it's possible we could have a fire here. Let's do something about it. And it's not onerous, and maybe if we work together we can figure out what to do best.
We've introduced you to what community preparedness looks like. Yet, we know it's quite another thing to embark on this endeavor in your own community. So, FireSafe Marin has created what we call the Universal Firewise Activities, or UFAs. These 7 activities will help you build a robust fire-adapted community. The first UFA is to develop a comprehensive contact list of residents. You can reach out to your neighbors on Nextdoor by posting an announcement inviting people to join your efforts. You can print out door hangers and place them on gates or under doormats. Once you get an initial interested group, host a social event. You can do this via Zoom and show one of FireSafe Marin's videos and have a Q&A after. Or, once it's safe, you can host a neighborhood block party and spend a few minutes letting people know things that they can do to make your community safer from wildfire and inviting them to join. One of the best ways, of course, is to reach out to the neighbors that you are already friendly with. Share your ideas. Surely they know other neighbors who may want to join efforts to make the neighborhood safer from the threat of wildfire. Holding regular meetings keeps the efforts rolling. Some communities do this monthly, others quarterly. It depends on what your community wants to do. You can hold meetings via Zoom to talk about concerns and activities. Try showing one of our 5-minute videos posted on our YouTube channel and have a discussion after. Of course, when it's safe, you can hold meetings in your home or on the patio. But I have to say, Zoom has been a bit easier. No need to tidy up or rush out the door. A key aspect of being a fire-adapted community is education. FireSafe Marin has several resources for you to pull from. Our website has a nationwide audience owing to its depth of information. There, you can find printable materials such as our evacuation checklist and homeowner's guide to wildfire preparedness. Over 75 videos and webinars can be found on our YouTube channel. Guest speakers include top fire scientists, veteran firefighters, and the latest information in the world of fire and wildland-urban interface. Don't forget to refer people to our Facebook page for quick updates. Fuel reduction can go a long way to make our neighborhoods safer for members. Encouraging participation in free annual Chipper Day events is a good way to make some headway. You can email those on your contact list, distribute door hangers, post the event on Nextdoor and Facebook, and post flyers in community hotspots. Holding annual neighborhood walks to reassess your progress and to note areas that still need improvement is a good way to keep current. Are flammable juniper and Italian cypress disappearing? Do you need to increase efforts on a neglected aspect of home hardening? Celebrate your successes too. By holding an annual evacuation drill, you are encouraging people to prepare before it's time to go. Preparing a to-go kit, dressing for safety, getting your family and pets prepared, and knowing your evacuation route beforehand goes a long way towards a quick and safe evacuation with less anxiety. Start with our training presentation and follow one of the drills outlined in our evacuation template. Notify your local fire department of serious hazard through their wildfire mitigation specialists. Get to know these folks. They perform defensible space inspections and are your go-to people for hazards in your community. By using these UFAs, you'll be able to engage, educate, and activate your community to make your community safer from the dangers of wildfire.
So Yvette has brought up the point several times tonight that education is really the key to making all these changes happen. I'll give a little pitch for FireSafe Marin. There's a ton of stuff on our website and YouTube channel, and we're doing things like this and whatnot. But what really makes the difference is what you heard from those FireWise leaders that are out there. Their experiences in talking to their neighbors, that's the best level of motivation. It's kind of nice to hear from the 3 of us on this panel, and we really do care. We're doing our best. But when your next door neighbor goes, "Hey, Rich, I think, do you need a little help over there? We really can make some improvements here." "Oh, how come I need to do that?" "Oh, wow. Haven't you gotten an evaluation yet?" "Give Nick a call. He'll come down. He'll do a great job." It's really important. So with all that said, within the Novato community, all of our communities are a little bit different. How do you think people view the concept of neighbor helping neighbor there?
I think it's really well received. I mean, we always can do better. We have 16 FireWise communities as at the moment, and some conversations with some other neighborhoods, but we really need neighborhoods to get excited about it and then pull together. COVID's given us a pause. So, we do have to acknowledge that that we can't all get together the way we normally do. I know people are getting really great with Zoom and things like that, but eventually we're going to get back to normal here. And, we hope to see them getting together, having their meetings. You know, you always have a different array of people in your neighborhood at different stages in their life. And you know, some of your elderly people down the street may not have ever changed out their batteries for the last 10 years in their smoke detector, or, you know, they may need help getting out if there's an alert. They may not hear it. They have hearing aids, things like that. And I think helping neighbor and getting back to that kind of neighborhood is really, really important. And it's going to take some encouragement, because some people like to stay, you know, in their own place. But I think that the benefits really outweigh, you know, any of the downside to it. So we promote it. I know the FireWise communities promote it, and hopefully it'll take off. But we need everybody to want to do that. And so you can make a lot of change and do a lot of good if you are neighbor to neighbor.
Yeah. So the FireWise program, it's a little bit new to Marin because it's a newish program. Last 3 or 4 years, it's gotten going. We're really proud of Marin because we have almost 80 FireWise sites, which is the most of any county in the United States. It's not all about numbers though. And one of the things that has been a little bit of concern to us is the performance is a little bit different. Some have real go-getters, maybe some a little bit less so. And sometimes people literally just don't know what to do. And that's where FireSafe Marin can come in. That's why we developed those so-called universal FireWise activities, because when you look closely, you go, well, I could actually do all of those. That's not really that difficult. It's not a huge amount of time. If all of our communities were to get people together to do those things, we would be incredibly more prepared. Exactly. So we're going to be pushing that. Obviously, Novato Fire is a big supporter of the program. We're all working together on this. Nicholas?
I did take a peek at the participants and attendees list while we had a bit of a break, and I do see a lot of those community leaders that are here right now, and homeowners who I've done repeat assessments at and have utilized the matching grant program. So applaud them and thank them for continuing to do their part.
I feel the same way. And to that audience, get your friends to view this. You'll be able to see that. They'll be able to see it on the YouTube channel. It's asking a lot to sit through a fairly long presentation like this, but honestly, it is kind of A to Z, everything you need to know. So speaking of A to Z, everything you need to know, we come up to our final segment. There is still no substitute for personal preparedness. It is very important. So let's take a look at what that means.
In the following section, you will hear about personal and evacuation preparedness. Long before a wildfire strikes, all Marin residents need to take action to be ready. There are many simple things that you can do today. The best advice to help you remain safe during a wildfire is to evacuate early.
When we discuss wildfire preparedness, especially how it relates to evacuation, we like to break it down into 3 topics: ready, set, go. This is a national program that follows the ready, set, go mantra, and it's important. It works. It helps us keep organized. The ready is discussing preparedness, things you do in advance of a fire. Being set is the situational awareness that you need to have when a wildfire is burning in your neighborhood, but really anytime during fire season. And go refers to going early, making the decision to leave. When's it time to evacuate? What situational awareness is when we're referring to a wildfire. Understanding what weather can trigger wildfires, can trigger especially the catastrophic wildfires, is so important.
Hello, I'm Captain Oscar Arenas with the Ross Valley Fire Department. You may have seen signs like this at the entrance of your neighborhood. These signs means that a red flag warning has been declared by the National Weather Service. When that happens, Marin County fire chiefs consult with each other to determine which areas of Marin are most at risk. The chiefs then issue an order for signs to be posted. During red flag warnings, extreme caution is urged for all residents because fires are more likely to ignite, and those that do are more likely to spread and be more difficult to control. Red flag warning conditions are typically related to wind events lasting at least 8 hours. During these events, vegetation is very dry, humidity is low, and no rain has occurred in the last 24 hours. Relative humidity and wind speed are the primary factors driving a red flag warning declaration. Red flag warnings are designated for a specific span of time. The warnings remain in effect until it expires, is canceled, or upgraded.
Situational awareness also has to do with how you get your alerts and warnings. You need to take steps in advance, like now, today, if you haven't already, to ensure that you're going to receive the electronic warnings that we send out. In Marin, we use Alert Marin, we use Nixle. We have options to send out things like the wireless emergency alerts, similar to the presidential alerts that ring every cell phone in a region. We use NOAA weather radios, but you've got to be registered for and you've got to understand how you might receive alerts when a fire's threatening your community. Alert Marin, I mentioned, this is our primary emergency notification system in Marin County. Virtually every county in Northern California has a similar system. This is how you will receive your emergency notifications when an evacuation for a wildfire is necessary. This is the best tool we've got. It works well. Nixle is a service that's available to any government agency to send out informational notices. We'll oftentimes repeat messages that went out via Alert Marin on Nixle, but we can't target specific street addresses with Nixle. So Nixle, little more broad reach. Because of that, we use it for informational notices that should go out to the entire community rather than targeted messages. Social media, commonly used. It's a great source of information. Your fire department, sheriff's office is probably using social media like Twitter, Facebook, and Nextdoor to get information out. This is going to be lower level information. When we use these notification systems, the terminology that's distributed is really important. An evacuation order. This is the most important message you might receive. This means that you need to evacuate immediately. You're going to take care of your personal safety. An evacuation warning is the next level down. This is a notification that says that you do have some time to prepare. You've certainly got time to prepare yourself, your family, your pets. You also probably have some time to prepare your home. We in Marin County only use the evacuation warning if you have in the belief of the firefighters who are directing the fire, at least 2 hours to evacuate. Oftentimes it's much more. We want you to consider things like battery backups for your garage doors, especially, but also for your communication. For about $99, you can install a garage door battery backup that will open and shut your garage door. On the packaging for the one they have at Home Depot right now, it says it'll open the door about 50 times during a power outage. It also keeps the button lit up on the wall, makes it easier to find if you need to get out of your garage door at night. And really importantly, it lets you close your garage door behind you. This is important. When you leave, we want you to shut that door behind you to keep embers from blowing into your garage. A battery backup for your phone system can keep your phones ringing. These will run your phones for about 12 hours typically. We want you to be able to receive the phone calls from Alert Marin if the power were to go out overnight while you were asleep and you weren't aware. NOAA weather radios. You're going to hear a lot more about these weather alerting radios. It's what people in the Midwest use to be alerted when a tornado is nearby, and we're going to be using these more and more to alert people to wildfires because they're battery operated and they don't depend on the internet or the grid. Here's this checklist. This checklist is available at firesafemarin.org. On our evacuation page. It's downloadable in a PDF format. You really ought to have one. Divided into 3 columns. The first column are things that you always do when there's a wildfire burning nearby or there's an evacuation warning or order. The second column are things that you'll only do if you have time. So really things that you'll do if there's an evacuation warning or if you're simply concerned because maybe a red flag warning has been issued or we're deep into fire season. And the third column are things that you'll do when you're actually evacuating, when you're on the road, once you've left. We need to be prepared for emergencies because we live here in a place that's just constantly confronted by emergencies. Wildfire Go kits have some special needs, but I'll real quickly run through what I think are critical in your Wildfire Go kit. Flashlights, Doesn't matter what time you evacuate, you are going to need a flashlight. And every firefighter I know carries multiple flashlights, one in every pocket, with backup spare batteries. So have a headlamp, have multiple handheld flashlights, and have spare batteries in your go kit. Make sure that you've got an AM/FM radio. Our checklist goes through items like spending cash, maybe a duplicate credit card, important documents, copies of your passports, your insurance information, a small first aid kit, drinking water. In your wildfire go kit, you need to have enough drinking water to get you out of town. You need to have some high energy food. You need to have some basic tools. Store this in a backpack. We want you to be able to put this on your back and move on foot, even though we're going to talk a lot about evacuating by car and why that should be your first choice. It still needs to be portable and something that you can take with you if you do need to leave your car in that outlier scenario. Keep these in your car if you're always with your car or near your front door during fire season. Make a kit for every member of your family, especially for your kids. Make a kit that might be a little different than yours for your pets. It looks like this with your go kit, a spare set for everybody. And every item shown here, long cotton or wool clothing, long pants, long shirt. Cotton or wool is important. It won't melt from embers. It won't melt from radiant heat. It provides a huge amount of protection to you. Heavy boots, leather boots. That floppy cotton hat they're wearing is important. It's not there for looks, obviously. It's there to prevent embers from landing in your hair. The two pieces of life-saving equipment in this picture that you need to have in your go kit are the goggles and the leather gloves. Let me tell you why. The number one injury for wildland firefighters are eye injuries. Those gloves, equally life-saving. If debris falls into the roadway during a wildfire and blocks your passage, it fell there because it was on fire. You very well may be able to move that debris out of the road as long as you have protection for your hands. We want you to think about your pets. This isn't just because they're adorable and we love our pets. It's because people love their pets so much that they're willing to die for them. Evacuation routes. That you ought to evacuate by car, you do need to know the route you're taking. We get a lot of questions about what route, what's the safest place, what is my route during a wildfire evacuation. We want you to simplify this and think about your route this way. Take the fastest route to the valley floor. And the map that you see here is a new series of evacuation maps that are being published in Marin communities as we speak. These are designed to be easily readable under stress by people who are evacuating. The maps are published in a 3-step process with a citywide or a zone map that helps you figure out which local area map or zone map serves your neighborhood. There are links and QR codes that will allow you to download these maps onto your mobile devices or onto your desktop computer. You can print them. Some of the communities will print these and mail them initially to residents in the neighborhoods. The maps are designed to be printed front and back, and they have an evacuation checklist written by FireSafe Marin.
The Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority commissioned an evacuation risk assessment in early 2021, addressing prevention measures that can be implemented to reduce risks that may affect a successful evacuation before it takes place. The evacuation study identifies and quantifies risk factors like topography, vegetation, traffic constraints, the presence of vulnerable populations, the locations of safe refuges, and the level of preparedness of communities. With this information, agencies will be able to determine and to prioritize improvements that can be made to reduce risks. Learn more about the evacuation study at www.marinwildfire.org. We'd like to introduce you to a new evacuation tool that will soon be launched in Marin County, Zone Haven. This app is going to give local agencies instant and constant information that is viewable by the public. Residents will know exactly what zone they're in, where they need to go in an evacuation. It will help with traffic management and where to put traffic control. As the county gets ready to launch Zone Haven, a Know Your Zone campaign will start so residents can learn which zone they live in and how to use the system.
All right, back again for the last time. So if we had a large wildfire burning somewhere in the North Bay, or if we had a lot of smoke over Marin County, we would have 500 plus attendees here tonight watching this. And the vast majority of the year would be here for one purpose: evacuation. It is the number one universal question asked all the time. So I think Novato, once again, has been kind of the tip of the spear on this. You've had the fire clear maps up there for a while. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, you can see right behind me. They're on my wall. So we sent out 12,000 of the evacuation maps. We have all our zones done here in Novato. They're on our website at novatofire.org, and you can go under prevention and you can actually download everything that's in the packet. You can also go to Fire Safe Marin, they'll be there, but you can also then get your individual zone. So if you are zone 12, you can get an evacuation map just for zone 12 that focuses on that area. So every one of the zones are in there. We have Zone Haven coming in maybe in about a month, and we're going to be pushing that out for that app. I think we're pretty good with Nixle and Marin. Every piece of paper that we send out for any report or flyer, we always have Nixle, Marin Alert, and now we'll also have Zone Haven in there. It's really important that everybody signs up for all of these applications. This is where you're going to get your most critical information that's, you know, as current as possible. So we're very excited about this program that's coming out. It will tell us things like, it will give you warnings, it will give you orders, it will give you advisories, shelter in place, or okay to repopulate back into your home. So it's going to give you a full circle of information of what you need to do and who's it affecting. And we will be at the control center of deciding how that information is going to be going out. So it's a really great addition to our Marin Alert, our Nixle. We do have the NOAA radios here. We had 1,200, and with an assessment, a full assessment, while supplies last, you can receive a NOAA radio with a full assessment. We have about 800 left, but while supplies last, you can also participate getting a NOAA radio, and that'll be another layer of notification.
Well, that's another just a great program. I live in a community that has no cell reception ever, and we went for the NOAA radios, gave them to everybody out here, and it created a lot more, put people at ease, because you can go to bed at night, there's battery backup in them, and if a large event comes out, we're all going to be notified. So what a great deal. Sign up for an assessment, get a free radio, get the assessment done, apply for the grant. It's kind of the whole package up there in Novato. I do think that, you know, the fire clear maps are great. I think that the Zone Haven is going to be wonderful, but something that we haven't talked much about that MWPA is doing that I think is going to have quite a big impact. They're also doing $1 million plus study on really looking at the whole coordination of evacuation in Marin County. So it's nice to know kind of where to go, but we all know there's choke points. There's other issues that are out there. There could be parking issues on narrow streets. There's a lot of moving parts to this evacuation world. And I think this study is going to prove really valuable because it's going to come up with really logical, very sensible changes to the infrastructure on some level, which I think really may help us with evacuation.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's great. But I'm going to give my one tip that I give to everybody when we talk about evacuations. It's really simple. If you're prepared, and we just gave you all the things to be prepared, if you thought this out ahead of time, and particularly on a red flag warning day, which is the only time we're really likely to experience a major wildfire where there's a lot of evacuation, all you need to do is be the first one out. You're not going to be stuck in traffic. If you get out of that door in about 10 minutes after the warning or the alert comes out, you'll be ahead of everybody, because everybody else will be, hate to say it, putzing around, because we know it goes on all the time. So if you want to be safe, be prepared, be the first. Not gonna have any problems. You're just not gonna. So, Nicholas, you got any thoughts on all of the personal preparedness, evacuation, go bags, all that jazz?
I always carry checklists with me when I go out and do assessments. It's something I leave the homeowners with along with their matching grants and their NOAA radios. I have all of those handouts. I hand them out to anyone who who just happens to be walking by in a neighborhood while I'm doing roadside assessments. And, I leave them with my business card and evacuation checklist, and that's a educational starting point. That's a positive point of contact that you can make right away. So all those things are purposeful, they're necessary, and everyone should have one.
Yeah, don't minimize the value. It really, you go, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. It's a good idea. Yeah, they're quite comprehensive.
And we have them in English and in Spanish.
Very good. So do we at Fire Safe Marin. You can also download them from us. So we're happy to get them out there, everybody. All right, time to wrap up here. So I'll ask Yvette first. Is there any closing thoughts or takeaway you think it's important to leave folks with?
Yeah, I would love to say, I think it's important to start your defensible space in your home hardening now while it's fresh in your mind. I think that it's really beneficial if you go to novatofire.org and you go into prevention. You can schedule an assessment off our website, and it goes right into the queue, and we will put you in with a specialist. They'll call you on the phone to set up a time that works for you. It has also a resource center there where all of our videos are links to Fire Safe Marin, the MWPA, Marin Master Gardeners, the Native Society. All of this information that we have is on our resource center. So you can go to Novato Fire and link straight to all these places. And I think the most important thing that I like to the community of Novato to know is that the Novato Fire Department is here for you, and that you need to use our resources here to improve your space.
Wonderful. Nicholas?
Give me a call. Let's get started. I'm ready to get out to your house. We could talk about it. We could talk about how to utilize the matching grant program. Thank you for having me here this evening. I was happy to be part of this, and I'm looking forward to getting out there and educating the residents of Novato on how to prepare themselves and their home for a potential wildfire event.
Action. That's what we like. That's great. I see we're joined here. Battalion Chief Dicochea, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, Rich, thanks for allowing me in. I just wanted to thank everybody on this webinar, on this workshop, especially the residents that took 2.5 hours of their day to kind of listen in. Chief Tyler and myself have been trying to answer a lot of the questions in the Q&A. So if we didn't get to your question, please feel free to email us. I think Yvette's already talked about this, but our website has a lot of information, and sometimes some of these workshops can be overwhelming. So please take a few minutes of your time in the next couple of days just to visit our website, go to the prevention tab and look at the information that we have there. And again, sometimes it can be very overwhelming for residents to go through there and take a look at that stuff and really just dissect it. But more importantly, our contact is on there. So feel free to contact myself, Yvette, any of the WIMs, and we can walk you through the process. You're not in this alone. We're not just going to go out and do a home assessment and then basically say, here's the forms and you're on your own. We're going to walk you through the entire process from A to B. So from, doing a roadside to a home assessment to helping you with processing the grants. We process grants every single day, and they end up at my desk, and I finalize them and I sign them and I process them over to finance. So we're going to help you through the entire process. The other website that I think is really important to talk about is Fire Safe Marin's website. So a lot of information on that website also, and it can be overwhelming. So please, for all the residents, Novato residents that are on this Zoom meeting, please take a look at both websites. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Tyler?
I thank you, Rich. I just want to take an opportunity to thank the community for coming tonight and joining us on this community workshop. The information that you received tonight can really make a difference in protecting not only your own home, your neighborhood, and your community. We've got over 22,000 households in Novato. Every one of those households and businesses also are going to receive these assessments, an opportunity to take advantage of the incentives. We want you to create a plan and take concrete steps to reduce your hazards. You can do this, even with the fire season on top of us. Your firefighters are ready. We were trained, we're well equipped. We're a part of a fantastic mutual aid system across all of California that will respond immediately to try and protect you and your property. So do what you can to partner with us, take advantage of these opportunities. We're really there to help you, and we look forward to meeting you very soon. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you to the Novato Fire Department, Yvette, Nicholas, John, Chief Tyler. Fantastic. behind the scenes for Fire Safe Marin, Jen Ghana, Meg McKay, Aaron Harris, our team helped put all this together. And then, like everybody said, I can't thank the audience enough. 2.5 hours is a long time to sit through something. We really do appreciate it. Hope you let your friends know about it. Stay tuned for the much shorter webinars in the future of Fire Safe Marin. We hope to see you there. With that, good night, everybody, and we'll stay safe. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.